Hi, I'm Ivonne.
And I'm Carlos.
And this is Ivonneplusone. Welcome to our 5th episode. We are going to be exploring 4 urban legends from California.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then, of course, finish it with some true stories that we found in different websites. California, also known as the Golden State, and its iconic Hollywood sign is celebrating 100 years this year.
Wow. I did not know that.
It was built in 1923, and it originally said Hollywood Land, and it was to promote house development. So they were trying to sell like lots and houses, and that was the advertisement. Which it was crazy.
So the whole, basically just put a sign up there that's like, it's like a regular sign that you see.
It's a billboard.
Billboard, there you go. That's crazy.
And eventually people started associated with the like entertainment industry. And at one point they wanted to take it out and people decided to keep it in. In 1949, they took the last 4 letters, the land part, and it just stayed as Hollywood. And it's been renovated because in the 70s it was falling apart. And it's been renovated, and now it's one of the most visited places and tourist attraction.
Interesting.
Isn't that crazy how it came from nothing?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like so well known. Anyhow, we're going to start talking about the first urban legend called Elizabeth Lake Monster. And it is said the lake was actually carved by the devil himself to keep his pet. Elizabeth Lake is located near Lancaster, California, and lies directly on the San Andreas Fault. They say that if you swim deep enough, you might find a portal to hell. Originally, at one point, it was called La Laguna de Diablo due to the presence of this monster. The first sightings were in 1830s by Don Pedro Carrillo. He built a ranch near the shore of the lake. The ranch mysteriously burned down in one single night, and he blamed this creature. Several people tried to live in the area, but left due to horrible screams and unnatural sounds that could be heard at night. Then came Don Chico Lopez and Don Chico Vasquez. Don't ask me. I don't know.
How many Dons are there?
Exactly, right? Don Chico, and both of them are Don Chico.
Don is like Sir everything. Right?
Yeah. They were able to build a ranch along the lake. Suddenly, like all the livestock and animals started disappearing, and they started seeing this wind creature like shadow flying over the ranch every night. They tried to kill it, and they were shooting at him, and all the bullets were like bouncing out of his skin, and then eventually they just left because they couldn't keep with the creature that was destroying all the animals. Then Miguel Leones bought the ranch, and the creature started to eating his animals too, but he was like, this is not happening to me. So he ambushed the creature one night, and he started shooting at him, but the bullets also bounced off his skin. But he decided to get closer, and he started hitting the creature with the rifle that he had. And it is said that he like wounded his eye, and the creature fled, and he was never seen anymore. They think they fled to Arizona.
Why? Just for no reason.
That's what they say.
Now it's in Arizona.
So the creature is described as having 2 leather bat-like wings about 50 feet in length. When he opened his wing, it's 50 feet long.
Okay, it's big.
It is big.
50 feet.
He has the neck long like a giraffe, like a long neck like a giraffe, and his face is flat like a bulldog, like, you know, like flat like that. And he has 6 legs. And it supposedly smells horrible to the point that you feel nauseated. Now, there's a legend that a creature that resembles a pterodactyl allegedly was killed by some cowboys in 1890, and the creature is called the Tombstone Thunderbird from Arizona. So some people feel like the Elizabeth monster flew to Arizona and was killed by these people, and they're the same creature.
Mm-hmm.
There's supposedly a picture I mean, when you go online, there's like a replica of the picture that at one point is supposed to exist, and it looks like a pterodactyl in the floor, like 4 or 5 men in the background.
It's a picture.
Well, it's a replica of the picture. The original picture got lost at one point, and they don't know what it is. Sorry. It hasn't been since then. However, when I was researching this, I found a comment by a person called Danny in a website called Weird California. And this is what he said. I'm not saying I saw the monster, the Elizabeth monster, but something very similar. When I was 13 years old, in 2013-ish, me and 3 of my friends were at the sport complex located in Castaic, California. When we were leaving the park, we noticed a humanoid creature with dark skin. Seems like it was kneeling down close to the exit in the parking lot, looking at us. As weird as it seemed, we had to pass it in order to exit the park. As we were getting close to it, it stood up and started running toward us. Once it got close to us, it started running away, exposing its wings, and it started flying away. We were all shocked. We were walking back to my friend's trailer home at the RV park. They were all talking about what we just saw and how weird it was. I was quiet because I was in shock, but every detail they were describing was spot on. We all witnessed the same thing, and it wasn't an imagination I had. We finally arrived to my friend's RV after around 10 minutes. Everything seemed fine as we were watching TV. But a moment later, we started hearing claws crash all around the RV. Did it really just follow us from the sport complex? We immediately knew what it was and all tried to leave at the same moment. After getting stuck because of how scared we were all trying to leave through the door, all at once, we didn't even bother to look what was crashing the home and left the RV park by running without stopping. I'm a very skeptical guy, but this day was unexplainable. I personally believe it resides near Lake Elizabeth or Lake Hughes or anywhere in dense mountains, but I'm not pursuing to investigate what that thing was. I am 27 years old adult now, but still remember that day like it was yesterday. So, is the Elizabeth monster still alive and hiding somewhere? We don't know.
Or the ghost of it.
Of the ghost of it? But it's crazy.
I mean, if ghosts can happen for people, why can't it happen?
Why cannot, right? It's a hunting his spirit.
It either got killed or it didn't.
We never know. So we would never find out unless you see them and you confirm either way. Is it a ghost? Is it a real person?
Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter.
Exactly. The second religion that we're going to talk about is Hotel del Coronado and his hunting. The Hotel del Coronado, also known as the Del, is a beachfront hotel that opened in 1888 in Colorado, California, near San Diego. It was designed in the elegant Victorian architectural style and has since become a well-known iconic history landmark. Like you've probably seen that white and red hotel beach, like with the roof, like part of the roofs are like circular and going all the way up, kind of like a church, going all the way up.
I haven't seen it, but...
Yeah, it's beautiful. Well, the hotel is known to be haunted, especially by the ghost of Kate Morgan, which she's so well known that even the hotel kind of have a whole history of her in their website. Mm-hmm. However, there are probably many other ghosts roaming the hotel too. The story is that Kate Morgan, when she was in her 20s, she arrived at the Hotel del Coronado in 1892 by herself, which was unusual for a woman to travel alone in this period of time. She was checked in room 302, which is known today as room 3327. As the story goes, she stated that she was ill, and the staff will actually say that she looked like she was under a lot of pain. she was waiting for someone to join her. She registered her name as Lolly A. Bernard, and it took a while for them to find out who she was after she died. Some accounts say that she kept checking multiple times with the staff to see if her brother, who she also said was a doctor, had checked in or brought her medication, but he never did. At one point, she bought some medications and also a gun. 5 days later, she was found dead on the outdoor staircase that led to the beach. She had suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Like I said before, it took a lot of time for them to find out who she was because that was not her real name. Later, it became to light that when they were doing the investigation, she had talked to one of the clerks. The clerk was asking her if he could send a telegraph requesting some funds for her to pay the hotel. And originally, he was asking, hey, can I send a telegraph to your brother? And he's like, I don't know where he is. Why don't you send it to a person called G.L. Allen from Iowa? So he did send the telegraph, and he replied saying, yeah, she can take $25 from the bank. Once she died, the clerk sent another telegraph letting that person know that she had died, but they never heard back. Now, originally, Kay was married to Tom Morgan, but they were separated, and she was seeing her husband's stepbrother, who is the person she sent the telegram, G.L. Allen. He was a gambler, and allegedly, Allen and Kay will travel around posting as civilian and trying to scam rich people.
Mm.
But they used to fight a lot. They were like in a lot of like on and off. And they had a fight in one train, and she took off and went to that hotel. And then, like she said, she kept checking to see he came back, but he never did. So they rule out her death as a suicide, but some people believe that she was murdered. Eventually, they never did an investigation at all. But eventually, it was found out that the bullet that was found in her head didn't match the gun that it was found near her hand when they found her dead.
Why did they just leave it a cold case? That's so obvious.
Well, I'm assuming, I don't know if today is considered a cold case, but it's very hard to find out who killed her because this was in 18.
I mean, for me now, like just scanning through that story, there's really only there's 3 possibilities. Somebody that they scammed. Mm-hmm. Now I'm thinking the husband.
It could be.
Because he could be mad about him hooking up with the stepbrother or whatever.
Exactly.
Or the stepbrother. So that's literally I would go, obviously you would go first with the husband and the stepbrother. Where were they?
Exactly.
And then after that, obviously, if they have an alibi, then you would go on to somebody they scammed, and that would be harder to do.
But this is like over 100 years ago, so
they didn't do that. They didn't care. It's a woman. It's a random woman that nobody knows about, nobody cares about.
And they just immediately say, "Oh, it's suicide."
That's messed up. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why she's mad.
Exactly. That's why she's hunting this place now. But
somebody got away with it.
This still happens today. Things are not getting investigated because they immediately rule out something and they don't actually do the work to say, yes, it was a suicide or not. So it's sad, but it's true. But I can see.
Somebody got away with it.
Exactly.
That she's mad.
So eventually they found out who her grandfather was, a person named James Chandler, and they sent him a telegraph, and he just replied saying, just bury her and send me a statement. No family or friends show up for her burial.
I guess she wasn't that nice of a person or something.
Yeah. Well, the way they found out who she was, it was because at one point she was working as a maid in a house, and the family actually really liked her. And when she didn't come back, because she said, I had to do something in San Diego and I will come back, and she never did. And then they started trying to find where she was, and that's how they found out her real identity.
Interesting. I wonder if she was really a maid or she was just stealing stuff and they didn't know.
I don't know.
Because if you're a scammer, it's hard for you to stop. I feel like, you can't just like be a scammer and then.
Maybe she was a good person, but when she was with him, she kind of was influenced by him. It could be.
Or maybe he was influenced by her. Or
it could be either way.
No, just kidding.
It could be either way.
Yeah.
Anyhow, they believe she's haunting the hotel. They seen a lady dressed in black, dressed like in the 1800 attire, and walking in the corridor or in different rooms, but especially in the room that she used to stay, which was room 3327, and looking through the windows. However, they say that there might be more ghosts. They have seen the ghosts of two little kids running around, a caretaker walking in the dining room, and different ghosts in the dance floor. Multiple guests and staff claim that they have experienced very paranormal stuff like lights flickering on and off, doors opening by themselves, TV switching channels or turning on or off, water faucets opening and closing randomly, ghostly faces that they've seen, changing temperature, voices and footsteps when there was nobody around, or I guess when I read this about the faucets opening and closing, apparently my sister, when we were growing up in my house, she said she was in the kitchen one time and the faucet opened all by itself, and she completely freaked out and ran out to a friend's house. And apparently me and my younger sister were upstairs, and she just left us behind.
Because she was taking care of you?
I don't know. I don't know how old we were. We weren't little. We were like teenagers. So I think we were just home by ourselves.
Well, I mean, by taking care of you, meaning she was the adult in the house.
Well,
That's what I mean.
she was
Not
the older
that she was
one.
watching.
But she was like, forget about my sister. I mean, she didn't even think about that. But she was out of it.
It's like when you see those videos of like, there's like something about to happen, and then he pushes the girlfriend towards
exactly.
the...
You remember me? The other day I saw a video. They were like in a haunted house, and one guy jumped out, and he was like with like a prop in his hand, and it was a boyfriend and a girlfriend, and the guy run away, and then the girl was like, what the heck? And the guy who was supposed to be the prop were like, what the heck? So the guy gave her the prop that he had in his hand, so for her to follow the guy and stuff. It was so funny. Well, anyhow, let's go back to this story. I guess claim that he was in the bed one time and the sheets were ripped off them in the middle of a night by a ghostly figure. Another say that a baby toy flew out of the corner out of nowhere, like for no reason. Or some people have said that they feel like a heavy feeling, like someone is sitting in their chest. Another person say that they felt really cold, and then without a warning, the door just slammed shut. And they also have taken pictures, and when they review the pictures, they see like a white mist, like somebody was walking in front of the camera, but there was nobody there. There is also claims that the 5th floor, which originally, like when the hotel was open, like the people who worked there, they used to live in there. So the 5th floor was where all the workers live, and now they're hotel rooms. But it's said that it's haunted too, and the room where the maid that used to take care of Kate used to live is supposedly to be haunted. But I couldn't find what room number that was. Mm-hmm. So nowadays, a lot of people want to stay in this hotel, and specifically
now you don't know what's
those
real.
Rooms.
Yeah, now you don't know what's real. They could be adding more and more stuff to the story.
That's true. But some of these things that I say that people claim is like, you know how when you have a story and people make comments, they were sharing their experience. So yeah. So I do believe there might be ghosts, but they glorify the ghost of Kate just because of the story.
Yeah, they can create an environment where it's like, what if they're doing stuff to
make it even...
Well, all they have to do is a couple more, because all that you need is like 3 people to push out the idea.
Exactly. Well, and so that's the story of the beautiful Hotel del Coronado. And like I say, people just request to stay specifically
They want the room. People are hilarious.
Yeah, that is crazy. Have you ever stayed in that hotel, and have you ever felt anything? And I would love to hear from you and let us know. That would be like awesome. So just either comment or send us an email at Ivonneplusone@gmail.com. So the third legend from California that we're going to talk about is called the Dark Watchers. So on the Santa Lucia Mountain, along the central coast of California, within the Big Sur, people have seen tall humanoid figures watching them from high above in the mountains, usually at dusk or at dawn. The origin of the legend has been heard for centuries, reaching back to when the Spanish explorers navigated these very same mountains in the 1700s. They saw figures they call Los Vigilantes Oscuros, because it was during the Spanish.
Everything's in Spanish in California.
And so these dark watchers are said to be 7 to 15 feet tall. The shadow figures or silhouettes appear to be dressed all in black, wearing cloaks and wide-brimmed hats, and usually they have a walking stick in their hand. They are described as featureless. They are silent and still, watching travelers from the distance, usually from high points in the mountains. They seem to vanish if anybody tries to approach them, and they're said to have incredible hearing and eyesight. Usually they are seen by persons who are either traveling by themselves or just with one other person. The person might feel an overwhelming feeling that they are being watched and often are drawn to look towards where the dark watcher is standing. Now, there are references about these creatures in different literatures from way back. Like in 1938, a guy named John Steinbeck wrote a book with short stories named The Lone Valley. And one of the stories was called Fly, in which a 19-year-old boy called Pepe was left the house. The mom sent him to do an errand and he killed somebody. So he came back to the mom, and mom basically sent him to the mountains to try to escape from the people who were probably looking for him because he killed somebody. And in the story, it's all about him trying to escape a number of humanoid dark watchers, and at the end he dies.
They kill him?
It's kind of implied that he was killed by the dark figure.
You don't know, the story doesn't tell you.
Well, I read it, but it's a very old language. It was hard for me to understand what was happening. But it is
Steinbeck,
kind of...
I'm so bad, but I think Steinbeck is a well-known writer. Because I've heard that name before, and it's almost like they're classic writer, very well-known.
Well, this was in 1938.
Yeah,
so
it's probably one of those classic American.
Yeah. But you know how they talk, the language was back then, so...
It's harder.
Yeah. But it doesn't say they kill him.
So you can read Harry Potter and understand what she's saying, but then Steinbeck, no.
That's my language. It is kind of implied that they kill him.
Oh, okay.
There was also a poem written by Robinson Jeffers in 1937 called Such Counsel You Gave Me, where he talked about the watchers and how they are not human. Now, there's a couple of theories about who these dark watchers are. The first one being people are just exhausted or dehydrated, and then just having hallucinations from they're exhausted from hiking all day, and they're just having hallucinations and seeing these creatures.
But they all happen to see the same one, or what?
Well, I don't know how many people actually seen it, but that's one of the theories. Now, the other one, which I find a little interesting in a way, is our brains usually try to find patterns in things, like when you wake up in the middle of the night and you see a figure that you think is a person, and then you turn the light on and it was a towel hanging from a rack or something, but your brain kind of made a pattern of it. Mm-hmm. So they think people are looking up at the mountain and they see a figure, but it probably a shadow of a tree or something.
That's what it's called, the shadowy figure?
Yeah. And it's actually, this phenomenon is called pareidolia.
It's a thing. I've done it many times.
Yeah, where your brain kind of complete an image and makes sense of it.
It was just a sheet and there's a light coming through.
Exactly. Other theory is that it is a broken spectra, which is a phenomenon where the sun hit a person from behind, and your shadow is seen either in the cloud or in the fog. So your shadow is projected towards the cloud. However, every picture that I've seen of this, when that happened, you have a circular rainbow around you. And when they describe this creature, they never mention that. So for me, that theory is out of the window.
It's just somebody throwing ideas
possibles.
out.
Exactly. possible things that it could happen. Now, others say that the Dark Watchers are just ancient spirits or guardians of the land. I also found another story by a guy named Dan in 2021 in weirdca.com. And this is what he said. Back when I was a teenager, I used to go hiking in the desert and mountain range where I live 7 miles outside of Bleedy, California. One afternoon, I went deeper into the mountain range than I had ever hiked before when I felt like I was being watched. The hair of my arms stood up. I quickly started looking around, fearing a mountain lion was nearby. When I looked up towards the top of the mountain, I saw a small cave like an opening in the top of the sheer wall. There, looking out towards the valley, I could see a hooded human figure. I could not see its face since it looked like it was covered by a thin veil, but the hook and cloak looked tattered and ripped. The figure made no movements. I turned around and started to walk back to the way I came and never went back to the area of the mountain range. The area was not traveled since there were no dirt roads or tracks, so who knows what was up there. All I know, it was no human, and I never been back since. This was back in the mid-90s. So he might have seen this creature in the mid-90s.
Or just somebody living in the cave.
It's somebody living in
He
the
said it
cave.
was not human, but...
Exactly. Well, it's far away, so...
Far away, a hooded humanoid, he said, so...
Exactly.
That's
It
hard.
could be either way.
It could be anything.
Now, the last urban legend that we're going to talk about California is of Alcatraz and all the ghosts that live in there, the prisoners who never left. I make fun of myself a lot of time because every time I was doing a research about Alcatraz, I keep saying Azkaban in my head. And I even type Azkaban like hundreds of times.
It's basically based on that, right?
Yeah, it's pretty similar because Azkaban is also in an island, like surrounded by water in a rock. It's like...
What's Azkaban for all the viewers that don't know?
Oh, sorry. Azkaban is the prison from Harry Potter. But I kept doing that over and over and over. And every time I had to correct myself in my head. So I might say Azkaban at one point reading this story. Anyhow, so Alcatraz, also known as The Rock, was a maximum security federal prison located in the Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay, California. It is said that it was built to break the spirits of even the most rebellious criminals. Now, this island was originally used by Native Americans, and they believed that the island was inhabited by evil spirits. So whenever one of the tribe members will break one of their laws, they will send them to these islands pretty much to die because...
You couldn't get out.
I mean...
It's far. It's
kind of far and the water's cold. So you have to be a very good swimmer to be able to survive. Eventually, the U.S. government acquired the island and they built a fortress to protect the San Francisco during the gold rush era. They also built the first lighthouse of the West Coast in 1954. That lighthouse was eventually replaced by a taller one in 1909.
On the Alcatraz Island. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it was the first lighthouse of the West Coast.
It's always been called Alcatraz, like the island, or did it have another name? Do you know?
I think it was always been called Alcatraz. It was something to do with, well, not really. I forgot. It was something, when they were named, it was a Spanish name. And it was something with pelicanos. And it was similar to Alcatraz, but eventually became Alcatraz. But I forgot what it was. It was a little longer.
Okay.
During the Civil War, it was used as a military fort and a military prison. So a lot of war prisoners were incarcerated there. Eventually, in 1933, they kind of redesigned and built the prison like it is today. And it opened in 1934 as a federal prison to hold the most dangerous inmates, such as Al Capone. It was designed with 3 stories, like in 4 cells. So it was A, B, C, and D. It has a warden office, a visiting room, a hospital, a library, a barbershop, a recreational jar, and it could hold up to 336 prisoners. But it never reached max capacity. I think the max it was like around 260. Now the inmates were kept mostly by themselves in individual cells with only a bed, a sink, a toilet, and a small desk. They have the right to have food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, but anything else they had to earn it with good behavior, like if they want to see their family, or if they want to go to the barbershop, or if they want to go to music or painting and all that, they had to earn it. Some of them will have jobs inside the prison, like they will be the one who cutting their hair or cleaning the bathrooms, but not all of them did. Now, it was believed the Alcatraz was unescapable due to the way it was built and the fact that it was surrounded by the ice cold water from San Francisco Bay. So even if you did escape, which they thought it was impossible, you will die in the water. So multiple inmates attempted to escape Alcatraz, but most of them just failed, basically.
Either died or
were killed or just didn't make it. Like there was apparently a very famous escape that they tried to do it, but they end up being killed. So it was 3 guys, which I will name later. However, there was one escape in 1962 when 3 inmates created some dummies, like the dummy face, using soap, toilet paper, and hair from the barbershop. They put the heads on the top of the bed and then kind of like made a bundle so it looked like somebody was laying in there. And they actually were successful on escaping. They used a spoon to make a hole in the wall. And the way the prison was built, it was like a prison cell, then it was like the wall, and then between the 2 prison cells, there was like a space for all like the plumbing. So there was like a hole in between the 2 of them. So they opened a hole in the wall and went through where all the tubing was, went all the way up and escaped. They were never found. So they don't know if they actually survived or if they died, drowned, or anything like that. So they did an investigation to reveal what happened, and what they found out is that the seawater have corroded the walls and the steel pipes. So they basically were able to just like scrape the wall with the spoon because it was so weakened. It was like crumbling. So after reviewing how expensive it will be to do all the repairments plus the combination of how highly expensive it was to operate the prison because they had to ship everything in and out, like even the food and all that. Isolated. So they just decided to close the jail in 1963. So eventually,
I think there's a movie called Escape from Alcatraz. It's been a long time, but I think I saw a movie called.
There's a lot of documentaries because they were the only 3 people that succeeded.
But this is not a documentary. I think this is like a regular blockbuster kind of movie.
Oh,
you have to look for that.
Yeah. Now, something very curious that has nothing to do with this is recently they were like investigating the Alcatraz basically, and they were doing ultrasound mappings in the floor, and they found out that when they built the prison, they didn't take off all the underground structures from when it was a fort. So underneath, there's supposed to be tunnels and gun magazines and a bunch of other stuff like underneath. But they said that they haven't opened a hole to actually investigate because they're afraid if they do that, the whole structure might collapse. So they just did it with like ultrasound. Radar. How do you say?
Radar.
Yeah, there you go. That's how they found out, which is very interesting. Anyhow, so Alcatraz holds a lot of dark history. There's multiple deaths from suicide, people trying to escape, or people falling victims to other inmates, or just because they were sick and died. There were some people who experienced total sensory deprivation, which led them to be completely in mental distress. And Alcatraz is regarded as one of the most haunted places. Now, the most haunted part of Alcatraz is believed to be cell 14D, also known as the hole or the treatment unit. It was a solitary confinement cell. They had no bed. It was completely dark and had a hole for a toilet. It didn't even have a toilet. It was just a hole in the floor. Prisoners were kept naked and subject to complete sensory deprivation and extreme cold in that room. They will sometimes not even give them food. In the 1940s, a chilling incident happened in this cell. A prisoner was inside the cell and began screaming that a creature with glowing red eyes was in the cell with him. But nobody paid attention to him. Nobody came to help him. And the next day, he was found dead with signs showing that he was strangulated. They did investigation, and they couldn't find anybody outside that did it. So it's never find out who did it. So some people actually believe there was an evil spirit that killed him, which is crazy. Okay, now, a couple days after this happened, during the routine morning head counts, the guard noticed that there was an extra prisoner, and when they stare at the extra person, it suddenly vanished. So they believe
When they stare?
Yeah, because they were counting to see how many prisoners. Every morning they will count how many prisoners were in there, and they noticed that one was an extra one. So they kept looking at the extra one to try to figure out who it was, and it just disappeared.
Wow.
So they think it was this guy who was killed in that cell. Now, when visitor goes to this particular cell, they report that there's a powerful presence in the room, feeling as though they're being watched, definitely having a significant drop in room temperature, and occasional somebody like touching him or feeling like they're being grabbed, but nobody's there. Other parts of the prisons are also said to be haunted. People hear someone crying and moaning and screaming, smelling something awful, crashing sound, disembodied voices, running footsteps, cell doors shutting and open on their own, chains rattling, changes in temperature from cold to warm, and persistent sensation of being washed. Others state that they feel like they were pushed or touched by a something cold. Now, guards also have reported that they heard unexplained gunshots or cannon being fired and screams, or also seeing strange apparitions wandering around the ground. It is also believed that the ghost of a prisoner called the Butcher, or nicknamed the Butcher, roams in the laundry room where he was killed near cell block C. Many state that they heard loud clanging noises in the utility room where Bernard Coy, Joseph Kretzer, and Marvin Hoover were killed when they were trying to escape. So this is one of the other prisoners that were trying to escape. And when this happened, they actually held hostage the officers for about 3 days, and it was like a bloody mess. Officers died, they were killed, and they
had to end it, so they just probably went in their guns blazing and killed everybody.
And they think that they're hunting that passage where they were killed.
Maybe it's not them, it's the officers.
It could be.
Because, when you go guns blazing like that, I always wonder, like, they don't care about those you know what I mean? The hostages, they're just like, whatever.
Okay, so they also hear somebody playing the banjo, and they say that Al Capone used to play the banjo, so they think it's him. Is that how you say it? Banjo?
Banjo.
Banjo. So I know that.
But it also sounds like that, you said that this has a history of being a place of, like, even in the Indian and the It sounded like a World War stuff, not World War, but like Ford stuff. Like there's probably all kinds of stuff going on there that could be happening. So you don't know what's what.
Yeah, since the beginning.
It's not just a prison.
I agree. But it felt like since the beginning it was meant to incarcerate people in there. And, I mean, not on
Even
purpose.
if it didn't, like people could have died on the fighting in the island. Things like that.
I mean, I think the island, just having a nice hotel would have been nice, because when you're there, you see all San Francisco and it looks pretty, but they used it in not such a nice way, and now has all this dark history on it. So it's kind of hard.
Can you go there today?
You can take tours there, mostly during the day. In Halloween, they have them at night. Of course, in Halloween, they always have tours at night. And I think some people who, with permission, they have stayed the night to like make videos and try to find any paranormal activity. But that's like with permission. But usually during Halloween time, you can go at night. And you have to go on a boat to be able to reach the island. But anyhow, I don't know. I skipped the place. Apparently I don't even remember what year now because I skipped it. A couple from somewhere in Europe took a picture in the visitation room. So the visitation room was like a room where the prisoner was. There was like a wall with a small window that it was like a bulletproof glass, and the family member will be on the other side. And apparently there's like a little hole where you can put your hand and touch your significant other. And people usually, one goes to one side and the other one take the other side, and they took a picture. And when they saw the picture, there was clearly, like super clearly, the figure of a woman dressed in black with the hairstyles from like the 40s and the 50s. So they believe it was a ghost. And I mean, it was all over the news and everything, and the picture is all over online. But it's crazy to see that maybe that is
a real picture that they
a ghost.
Kept the history of it. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a female, so...
It wasn't somebody that was like living in the prison. It wasn't a prison person, probably.
Exactly. It brought maybe a family member or somebody they used to work there. Yeah. But anyhow, this is Alcatraz and how it's still inhabited by ghostly prisoners. It is crazy. A lot of people get very different sensations when they go visit it as a tour, even during the day.
Cool.
So these are the 4 urban legends from California. There are plenty more. We probably will do more at one point when we come around. But now we're going to read some stories from different websites that people had shared their experience. The first one called Ghosts in a Gas Station by Udo50. I spent my early 20s traveling a ton. I worked part-time with an imported car company that did shows all over the South. Several times a year, I would drive from Florida to Kentucky, Tennessee to Georgia, all over the place. Often, these trips, I will end up taking some strange country or county road to avoid highways early in the morning. The worst drive of my life, 3 things happened that I can't explain. The first happened around 1 a.m. My GPS told me to take the most southern exit onto a side road of the interstate. It's nothing but farmland and trees, but my GPS swears it's a shortcut. I'm cruising for 5 minutes or so when an old Mustang pulled up behind me, flashing their lights. They rode my bumper for about 15 minutes, but there was nowhere to pull off in the middle of all the countryside. They revved up, and I thought they were finally going to pass me, being as there was no oncoming traffic. We were the only ones in the road for miles, but the car never passed me. I physically turned my head to check my blind spot, and the car was gone. There was no turn off or area for them to have pulled over. It just straight up disappeared. When I got back, on the interstate 30 minutes later. 30 minutes had passed, but I was right back at the same exit I had taken to get off. I had been on a long, straight, dark road for 30 minutes and ended up exactly where I started. A couple hours passed, and I'm now 10 hours into my drive and only 2 hours from my home. I turned off the interstate onto a county road that leads to the highway my house was on. It was a local shortcut I had taken many times, only about 2 cities over from my own. It was a lead after 3 a.m. I go for a cigarette to keep me away the last leg of the ride, and my lighter runs out. As I'm fixing to put the cigarette back in the pack, I pass a poorly lit gas station. Perfect, I thought. I pulled into the parking lot and decided to fill up. While I'm in the pump, I noticed inside there were 2 people. An old Mewman-looking woman. I found out Mewman means grandma. In a muumuu at the register, and a big old redneck fellow in an overall in the aisle. They're facing each other like they're in a conversation, but neither of them are moving. I make my way cautiously inside and approach the register looking for a big lighter. I didn't see any, so I asked the woman at the front of if she had one. She looked at me like I was from Mars. I tried to explain I just wanted to light up my cigarettes, and she goes, "Oh, I have matches. Is that what you're looking for?" She handed me a box of matches and thus charged me for them. I thanked her and turned to leave when I realized the man on the overalls still hasn't moved, but I can feel him watching me. I'm 19 or 20 years old and 125 pounds soaking wet at this point in my life. The hair on the back of my neck is standing straight up, and my brain is yelling at me to get the hell out. I quickly made it to my car, and this exact moment I turn on my engine, every light in the gas station just goes off. Inside, outside, the pumps, the street lights is pitch black, except for my headlights. My tires squeak, and I tore out of the parking lot as fast as I could. I kept the box of matches for years to solidify in my mind that the experience actually happened. So it was like a ghost. I have read a lot of stories of that.
There was nothing there, you think?
There was nothing in there. I mean, they saw something, they went inside, they did whatever they did, but everything felt weird, and then it's gone.
That was 2 different stories that you just told, right? Or
well, it's the same person, but 2 stories.
Okay.
Apparently, everything happened on the same trip. There's one more from the same trip. Like everything, maybe he was on drugs. I don't know.
I forgot to mention that I did a little something before I left.
But everything happened the same day, so it was kind of weird. So, every time I went back on that county road, I searched for the gas station and I never saw it again. At this point, I'm now 45 minutes away from a state line and an hour from my comfy bed. I'm freaked out and beyond exhausted. I had been up for 2 days and and I could go cross-eyed. I have been staring at the road for so long. I'm still on the same road, but I'm a long way from the gas station, and I'm still trying to put it out of my mind. When all of a sudden I see a blue light behind me. Now, my father was a police officer for 26 years. I remember the year police cars went from the old school rotatory lights to the new LED bar lights. The Hilicious road trip was probably around 2016, and behind me was the old school rotating lights. It was too dark to see what kind of car they sat on. I just saw blue lights. I luckily had a friend who was a sheriff deputy a couple cities over, and I called him, knowing he worked night shifts and would still be awake. I asked him if he knew of any department that still uses the old lights, and he told me none in the entire state has them. He told me to keep driving until I saw a public spot to pull over, but absolutely not to stop on the dark side of the road. I drove for a solid 30 minutes, keeping my friend on the phone with me, the blue lights trailing behind me the whole way. I finally hit the crossroad where the county road meets the highway. I'm almost 20 minutes from my house. I pull into a very well-lit gas station. In the intersection, a gas station that I stop at almost daily on my way to work, and I felt very comfortable with. The blue lights behind me suddenly cut off, and the car sped off too fast for me to get the license plate or a good description. I waited inside the gas station, bought a Red Bull and a pack of smoke from the little lady at the gas station whose family face, our friendly smiles, felt like a warm welcome back to the reality. I got home that morning and checked all my doors several times before I falling asleep. Soon after, I quit traveling with the car show. To this day, I hate driving by myself. I always bring a friend or my dog to a long road trip. And no matter what the GPS say, I stay in highways and interstates. I had only told this story to 2 or 3 people over the years in fear of people not believing me. I still swear I fell into a time warp, or maybe the Twilight Zone. I'm now married to the police officer friend, and he very clearly remembers the night as he was on the phone with me several times throughout the night. We only talk about it once. So I don't know if it's a he or a she, but had all this weird experience in one trip.
Wow.
It's very crazy, huh? Like only having one by itself is crazy enough.
Maybe the next time they'll think twice before taking a shroom right before they.
Who knows? But it's crazy.
That part.
Yeah, especially like the gas station thing is like scary. Like, I don't know, like if I have a bad feeling of a place, unless I'm desperately in need of like gas, I probably wouldn't stop. I would keep going.
Yeah. At night?
Yeah.
What's the point?
It's dangerous. Now, this story is by James. He says, I am a World War II veteran, and I have seen a lot of crazy and scary things in my life. But what I saw in my brother's basement was simply unbelievable. My brother has lived by himself his whole life. He recently purchased an older home on Tamarack and Lambert, which is in La Brea, California. The house was built in the 1940s and is very small but has a very large basement. He is a pottery maker, so he thought that it was perfect. About a week later, he called me in the afternoon and told me that he had not been able to sleep. He said that he kept having random nightmares. He also mentioned that when he worked in the basement late at night, he sometimes got a pain in his neck and felt like he couldn't breathe. I never believed in ghosts, but this was sounding pretty strange. One day, we had a few drinks and played poker with a couple of friends. At around 11 o'clock at night, we heard the loudest male scream I have ever heard come from the basement. We all stood up immediately and walked towards the basement. I grabbed my brother's rifle and proceeded towards the basement. We all figured that a burglar was hiding in the basement and must have gotten hurt or something. As I slowly made my way down the stairs, I shouted, "Who the hell is in there? You better get out or you will be shot." And to all of our surprises, there was nothing. We searched under every table and in every possible hiding space, but nothing. We walked back upstairs and talked about it for about an hour. We decided to leave because we were not going to stay there any longer. As we were walking out of the door, we heard another treacherous scream, but this time from inside the living room. Our friends ran off, but me and my brother had to see what the heck was going on. With the rifle in hand, I walked towards the living room. Again, we found nothing. Suddenly, the basement door swung open, and a tall man stood there, just looking down at us, with a noose around his neck. Oof. I felt like I was going to faint. I had never in my life seen something like this. When I turned to my brother, he was already on the floor, knocked out. When I looked back at the man, he was gone. I woke up my brother and hot-tailed out of there as fast as we could. The next day, we asked the neighbors if they knew anything about the house, but nothing. We then went to the library and pulled up local newspapers from around the time. About 3 hours later, we found an article of a well-known businessman that hung himself in the basement in 1953. In my brother's house. He hung up in the basement in 1953 in his brother's house. We were so shocked. At the same day, put the home up for sale. There was an old man that had owned the home for over 50 years but never reported anything. It is still for sale to this day, and we are taking any reasonable offers. What do you think about this one?
Wow.
That was crazy. Like,
So the yell was him killing himself?
I don't know if
that's
it was
just a weird thing.
I don't know if you yell when you're
If you're choking, you
exactly how you're barely breathing. So
maybe
he just
regret it. I don't know.
I don't know what the yell was. Or maybe he was being annoyed by all the noise that they're probably making when they were playing cards, or who knows. But that is freaky, especially because he still had the news from when he hanged himself. That is very freaky to see. Wow. Okay, last one. This one is called The Woman in the Rocking Chair by Plus Management 1955. Telling this story takes a while, so I'll do my best to make it as short as possible. My family grew up in a town where almost everyone worked in a factory. It was a glass factory that made windshields for cars and glass for tall buildings. Most of the jobs there were really dangerous. My great uncle worked there when he first married my grandmother's sister. They were poor, so they moved into the upper floor/attic of his grandparents' house. One night, while he was at work, she woke up and there was a woman sitting in the rocking chair in the corner of the room brushing her hair. She waited a while to make sure she wasn't dreaming and finally said, "Who are you?" The woman turned into a mist and went up through the ceiling.
Into a what?
To a mist.
Oh, wow.
And went up the ceiling. This happened several times. But my aunt never said anything because she was afraid people would think she was crazy. The woman always looked like she wanted to say something. Finally, one day when she appeared, she looked at my aunt and said, "Skinny can't go to work on August 22nd. Ooh, that gave me the chills. Skinny is what they call my great uncle. She was really shaken up by this, but the woman's appearance stopped. She decided she better take this seriously, so she started begging her husband not to go to work on that day. He hardly ever missed and demanded to know the reason. She couldn't give him a good reason, but she cried and pleaded until he finally agreed to stay home. A boiler exploded that day, killing every man on his shift. We still have the newspaper clippings to prove it. After this happened, he obviously wanted to know how on earth she knew to tell him not to go into work, but she still wouldn't tell him. Whew, that gave me the chills. She told her the story of a woman in the rocking chair. Finally, his grandmother was talking to her and begged her to let her know how she saved his life. She told her the story about the woman in the rocking chair. She turned white. His parents had died in a car accident, and when he was an infant, he used to say he was going up to the attic to talk to his mom, who was brushing her hair in a rocking chair. They wouldn't let him go up there anymore because they thought it was unhealthy for him to pretend. The house is still standing in the town where I live. I've never been in it, but I love to see if the woman in the rocking chair is still there. So the guy used to see her when he was a little kid, and now she saw him and she gave them the message to stop. That's crazy. Oh, that gave me the chills. What do you think?
That was good.
Yeah.
I like the story. I mean, I like the other ones better, but
I like the other
this one's cool. I mean, that was his family, right?
Yeah.
How's
He
his
was
mom?
a good.
How was his mom that died young or whatever? Died when he was.
That's what I understand.
So that's why she said it was a complicated story that she had to.
It gave me the chills, but it was a good ghost time to.
I hate those like movies where, an old lady or a little girl. Those are the worst because then they always like when they turn around, they're like this disgusting monster looking thing. You're like, oh, old lady, no.
She's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Well, this is the last story for today. I hope you enjoy it and you keep listening to us and come back for the next episode. And if you have any stories that you would like for us to share, for you to share with us, just send it to us at Ivonneplusone@gmail.com. Or if you like drawing or painting and you want to represent any of these creatures or ghosts that we talk about, like the Elizabeth monster, lake monster, or the ghost from Del Coronado Hotel, just send us your art to Ivonneplusone@gmail.com, and we will love to see it and share it with others. So just let us know what you think. Anything else?
Yes. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share us with your friends. That would be wonderful. And continue watching us, and we'll continue making content.
Yeah, and thank you for being with us. We really enjoy doing this. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.